please tell me about your wedding day?
Tell you about our wedding day. Okay, there's a lot of story before our wedding day, but our wedding day started out about 2 days before, 3 days before. What happened was I would stop by and see your grandma all the time, and all the time since we were about 11 years old. And I stopped by one day, and she was kind of depressed, and we talked about some different things, and I said, "Why don't we get married?" And you know what she said?
Yes.
Yes. And then she says, "When?" And I says, "Well, how about Friday? I've got 2 more days to work, and we can run off to Idaho and get married on Friday." And the reason we did that was because I wasn't too sure my mother and dad would agree, my mother would agree, and I didn't want to start a family feud, so we just got married in 2 days and left. So the way we did it, I had to work in the fire department, and so then I told her to take the bus up to the YMCA in Seattle. Or actually, I picked her up at the bus station, dropped her off at the YMCA, and I was working nights. So then I went to work. And when I got off work in the morning, I stopped by the YMCA, and I picked her up, and we got in the car and we drove to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho.
Because you could get married at Coeur d'Alene.
We could get married in Coeur d'Alene,
'Cause I
Idaho at a
was-
young age, yeah.
Yeah, I was younger,
She was younger.
wasn't legal age,
How old were you? 17?
yes.
And so then anyway, we got married. We got to Idaho, got our motel room, and then we went to the courthouse. And when you go to the courthouse, in order to get a marriage license in Idaho, you had to have a blood test. And of course, they're all set up to do that. So we go across the street to the place to do blood tests. We get the blood test results right away. We bring them back to the courthouse and get our marriage license. And so then, okay, now we've got our marriage license, what do? So we found the chapel, the marriage chapel. It was called Marriage Chapel, which was not too far from the courthouse. So we go over to the courthouse, to the marriage chapel. And the people at the marriage chapel says, "Yeah, fine, we can marry you. And we've got some witnesses that will come over here." So we go into this nice room, and he reads a few things out of the Bible and pronounces us husband and wife. We're introduced to the witnesses. They sign the paper, and now we're married.
And
they
we got
said,
a free wedding cake.
and we got a free wedding cake. Because the marriage chapel then said, "Here's a coupon to go to this restaurant that will give you a free wedding cake." So we went down to Lake Coeur d'Alene, nice restaurant,
Yeah,
had our dinner, and they brought out our wedding cake for us. And so that is our wedding.
How did your parents take it when you came home?
Well, we didn't tell them.
Oh,
well, my mom was delighted.
Okay.
She was really happy that it was going well, and she had taken care of Jody while we were in away from home there.
But our honeymoon, we had, I think 4 days off or 5 days off. And so I had to go to work days, and at that time I was living with my brother, who was going to the University of Washington, just off campus, and 2 other guys that I knew from college in Centralia. And so I would live at his place. Well, after we got married and I went to work, I go, "Gee, guys, I got married at the fire station." I told them, "I got married. How do I find a place to live?" And he says, "Look at the paper in the morning, and the best place to live at this time is in West Seattle.
Yep.
So look at the West Seattle Herald, see if you can find a place to rent." There was one place to rent. I called them up. They were out at the university. They owned property at the University of Washington, and so I went out there and signed a year's lease. And
I
then
thought it
after
was in West Seattle that we had our house.
it was the house was in West Seattle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
in West Seattle, and then but the people that owned it lived in, at the University District.
Okay.
And so I went out there, got the lease, then I went back to work the next day, and then I, went back and picked up Darlene. She was staying at her mom's. After we got married, I just dropped her off at her mom's. This is planned. This is how we planned this. We've learned a lot since then. But anyway, I dropped her off at her mom's because I had 2 more days I had to work. And so then picked her up. When I had the key to the rental house, we picked up. What did you get from your place? Some pots.
Clothes.
Some
Well,
clothes.
I got all the bedding,
All the bedding.
cause we went
First
up,
things
remember, two days before we got everything, so we made sure we had bedding. Which
Had
was
bedding.
obviously the important part of being married.
So we had bedding and a few pots and pans and moved into the house and we just,
And
of course,
right away you got the,
well,
the
of course, one of the things was that we already had Jody.
yes,
See, he was, what, 18 months old?
yes,
15 to 18 months old. And so we had a little bedroom house with a kitchen eating area.
yeah.
So we brought his crib up, and he was kind of a rambunctious kid, so I nailed his crib to the wall so that he wouldn't move it across the room. And we
He
started
was-
our family
He
that way.
was, he was bouncing across the room.
Yeah,
That's the beginning
We
of
fixed it,
Jody
really.
too,
yeah,
yeah.
so,
He hasn't changed much 60 years later.
yeah, exactly.
That
He's
was
still
good,
the same.
yeah. That was, honestly, the Lord was so good to, watch over us, and when we got the little rental place, there was, some chores he was able to do, so we almost had free rent from your labor, and, you know, that was the beginning of so many blessings. It was really, we have lived a blessed and charmed life on things
Absolutely.
like that. It was
Absolutely,
just,
yeah.
things just came at the right time. When we moved down from Seattle, this is digressing a bit, but when we moved down from Seattle, I was anxious about protection, and when we left, we looked at the newspaper, and there was a .410 shotgun for sale in the paper. So on the way out of town, we stopped at the place and got our little $40, wasn't it?
$40 double barrel 410 shotgun.
Which I still
Because we're moving
have.
out into the country.
That's my shotgun. I still have it. So that was the beginning, and we had just amazing
I
blessings.
signed a lease for a year, so we knew
Yeah.
we were living in the rental house for a year.
Yep,
So when it got close to the end of the year, we started house shopping,
yep,
and I was able to then, the first year in the fire department, we couldn't work off shift. And so I was starting into my second year, so I could work off shift, so I started picking up some extra work. And I did some work on the rental house and cut down some trees and sold the firewood from the trees and got paid for cutting down the trees and that sort of thing. So it all worked out. We always had money.
yeah.
Sometimes we had to pinch the pennies, but we always had money.
Yep.
So,